I feel like I definitely picked the right game to be at for a 2-1 performance. Welcome back to the Arsenal Humans podcast with me, Luce. I hope you're all good. I feel like this week, in terms of Arsenal football, it has been kind of mixed. We've had 2 wins, 1 loss. Not the best. We've also got 4 games to look ahead to. So reflecting on those 3 games, looking ahead to 4 games, it's quite a busy episode. Of course, as always, I'm going to go through a warm-up poll. I'm going to go through the weather feature, then go through the games and then the predictions and then round it up. So yeah, it's quite a full-on episode. I feel like as much as a lot of people, especially in the media, a lot of people are dwelling on the most recent game, which obviously was that 2-1 loss against Villa, I feel like I want to start this off on a positive note. And also, I feel like, I'm probably going to echo what a lot of Arsenal fans are thinking anyways, but I don't think we need to stress that much. We're still top of the Premier League. We're still doing very well, considering we obviously have a lot of injuries, but I feel like we don't even need to bring excuses into the conversation just yet in terms of that. But I do kind of want to focus on the positives with this narrative. And one of the positives was that game. I actually went to the game, the Liverpool, I just realised I said that game and it's like, what game are you talking about, Luce? I'm talking about the Liverpool game in the WSL. It was Arsenal 2, Liverpool 1. It was a draw for most of the game, and then suddenly Stina, she pulls through. She pulled through in that Champions League final against Barca. It took me, 2 minutes? 1 minute? Less than 2 minutes to even mention that Champions League final. And it was just great to see her pull through again for us. And it sort of created this debate between me and a friend at work. We were talking about the games at the weekend, and I was like, well, at least I was at the right 2-1 game that weekend for that day. And I sort of was just talking about the goals, and then he was like, oh yeah, that Stina goal was unreal, the way she turned and then found the net. And I was like, really? Because I feel like I'm more fixated on the Olivia Smith goal, because she went around like 3 of her former teammates, literally just danced through them, and then from outside the box just slotted it perfectly, bottom left corner. And then I went back and watched that Stina goal, and I was like, oh no, that is actually really good. And then I was like, you know what, I'm so conflicted that I thought, instead of me making up the decision, because I'm a Libra, I'm quite indecisive, I was like, let me put it in my warm-up poll, slightly different warm-up poll. I feel like I haven't really done it based on this, but I want to focus on the positives this week, because I could have picked a question about the Premier League title and all that narrative that is being created, but I thought, you know what, let's bring it back to the goals. So I basically said, which was your favourite goal for Saturday's game? Olivia Smith's goal or Stina Blackstenius? And I feel like I need to go back through all the episodes over the last year, and there's over 50 of them, and look at all the warm-up polls, because I feel like this has never happened, but it was a 50-50 split, and this has not really helped my decision, because I feel like I'm still so torn between which goal is better. I feel like I need to hear more thoughts, basically. Obviously, this was just a poll, so it's sort of just people just voted. Whereas I feel like a few people did message me as well, but I want to hear in the comments, whether you're listening on Spotify or watching on YouTube, what was your favourite goal and why? Because for me, I'm still so torn, and I kind of need you guys to help me decide. Either way, it's a very good position to be in, that we're torn over these goals. I think the fact that it's against her former club, and it was at the Emirates, which is where we know she performs unreal goals, like she scores unreal goals. I do feel like Olivia Smith stole it from me slightly in that moment. But then thinking about the context of how Stina won us the game and we were drawing 1-1, the crowd, the atmosphere, I feel like I'm swaying slightly more towards Stina's goal, because when I watched it on replay, and I've had them both on loop, when I watched it on replay and how she turned her body and she finally wasn't offside, because there was a lot of moments in that game that she was. So I feel like I'm slightly leaning more towards the Stina Blackstenius goal, but I feel like I'm easily swayed with either, because, yeah, both goals were unreal. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. That is quite a nice way to start the episode. I'm quite happy. I feel quite positive, starting it like that. So I hope that it's radiating through the mic if you're listening on Spotify, or you can see the visuals of me just like dancing around, jumping around basically on YouTube. Let's get into the whatever the weather section, because this week we've gone along the same theme of sort of injuries, returns. It's been a bit sunny, a bit rainy, but you know what? Let's get into it now before I spoil it. Okay, so the whatever the weather feature, which is probably one of my favourite features, we get to just look back at Arsenal as a whole this week, usually things that happen off the pitch, but to be fair, this week I feel like it's been a bit of a mixture of both. There's things that I've mentioned that are on the pitch as well, But to start off with, one of the things that has probably got the most noise created over the last couple of weeks, Saka got engaged, and you know what, I've got to bring all the important news to you lot. If you haven't seen, it's all over socials. I feel like a lot of people are creating a lot of content around it, whether that's meme based or just reacting to it, like, oh my gosh, this is such big news. But it's so nice to just see a player who we all adore so much, our star boy, be so happy off the pitch as well in his relationship and get engaged. So yeah, I thought we'd start with a really sunny headline, so I hope that's put everyone in a good mood and put a smile on all your faces. Moving to a slightly more negative one, which is focusing on the pitch, or basically off the pitch, because we've got so many injuries that has stopped a lot of players from getting on that pitch. And it's sort of, the headline that I'm sort of creating is there a bit of an injury crisis at Arsenal right now? I don't really know. I feel like the fact that Arsenal women are using their third choice goalkeeper right now for that game we just saw, and the fact that Arsenal men are missing out on 4 key defenders, it is looking a little bit scary. But I do feel like we get to this time of the year and it's not just our team that's suffering with these injuries. The fact that obviously with the women it's frustrating that the reason why we're using our third choice keeper is down to an ACL injury, and obviously there are other ACL injuries which is bigger than just Arsenal women, bigger than women's football. It is such a big issue right now. So that was slightly more of a rainy headline. Sorry to bring the mood down, but we're going to bring it straight back up because don't you worry, Kim Little and Leah Williamson were on the bench for Saturday's game. Kim Little actually did come on, and it was so nice to hear, especially obviously with the festive vibe. Oh my god, I forgot to mention, I've got a little tree. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see I'm trying to get into the little festive spirit. And the Emirates definitely was getting into that festive spirit as well, because we started singing Kim's song, which is obviously Walking in a Kimmy Wonderland, and it felt like it with her return. And I mean, even though Leah didn't actually play that game at all on Saturday, it was just great to see her name on the team sheet, and hopefully she will be playing at least, I reckon, about 10-15 minutes against Everton at the weekend. So we have to wait and see. But before we look ahead to those games, like the Everton game in the WSL on Saturday, let's look back, because we've had 3 games this week. So let's dive into that straight away. So I'm just looking at my notes, and if you're watching on YouTube, you'll notice not the best facial expressions, because I predicted a 3-1 win, a 3-0 win, and a 2-1 win. I got none of the predictions right. That's really bad. That is not a good advert for this podcast whatsoever. But you know what? We did get 2 wins out of the 3 wins that I predicted, so not too bad. Let's start with the first game. I did predict it to be a 3-1 win. It was the same goal difference, but it was Arsenal 2, Brentford 0. I mean, I'm just going to get straight into the 3 takeaways from the game. Another start, another goal for Merino. I think it's so impressive that someone who has come into our squad, I mean, we've repeated it so many times, but I feel like it's worth saying, someone who's come into our squad, not even as a number 9, not even as our striker, is now our top goal scorer of the season. It's quite crazy how that's turned around. But it's so good that we've been able to have such versatile players that we can pick and choose basically who we want to put up top when we are lacking players up there due to injury or just not having players for that position. So it's really great to see him continue to shine. Another player that I think we need to mention, we need to show our appreciation for, is Ben White. I feel like recently he hasn't played too many minutes, or when he has, we haven't really put him in the spotlight as much. But I think it was just so good to see him not only playing and slotting in, showing that we have that squad depth in the defence, but also that goal I have had on loop where Madueke does his little flick back round, Ben White overlaps him, ends up running down the wing, crosses it into the box, perfectly placed on a plate for Merino to header it into the back of net. And that goal, obviously Arsenal with their videography, with their social media team, producing the best content, put it in slow-mo, and that was on loop. That was straight on my story. I saw that video and I was like, yep, you're going straight on my Instagram story, because I just felt like it was such a great goal, and that was thanks to the work of Ben White throughout the whole game, but especially in those moments, knowing to overlap the run and things like that. Obviously Madueke was mentioned in that because he was the start of that goal, and the skill he brought to the team. It's so refreshing to know that even when we don't have our star boy Saka starting, we've got great cover. I almost felt like Madueke almost seemed more comfortable on the right than he did when he's previously played on the left. But it's just great to know that we have more options. So yeah, I'm excited. And I feel like in terms of that goal, I feel like we should just really reminisce in it and just stay in that moment, because it was a beautiful sight for any Arsenal fan. If you haven't looked at it, or if you want to go look at it again, definitely go on Arsenal's socials. It would be obviously just after the game, or I think it's always the morning after. They usually post the slow-mo of one of the goals, and yeah, it was a nice moment. So that started the week off in a positive way. I mean, not only that, but obviously Liverpool drew that night against Sunderland. Chelsea lost against Leeds that evening, and I just felt like it looked like things were on our side. Obviously, same can't be said for the end of the week, but in between, we're going chronologically. We had Arsenal 2, Liverpool 1. I was at the Emirates. Context of it was so good to be there. There was about, I think, 35,000 fans. And I thought that was a good turnout, obviously, considering Liverpool at the bottom of the league. They didn't play like they were at the bottom of the league, though, I'm going to be real, because we were dominating for maybe the first 10 minutes, should have found a goal then, and then it almost just felt like Liverpool stayed in the game. And yeah, basically, before I rush ahead, let me get to the 3 takeaways. So the first one, obviously, I have to mention Olivia Smith, not only because it was her former team, the first time she was coming up against them, and she found the net, but I just think how she plays the game, the fact that Slager started her, I was very impressed. I just felt like there was a lot going for Olivia Smith in this game. She was first to all the balls, the way she was running around players like they weren't even there. Olivia Smith is unreal. Definitely, I was going to say definitely the summer signing, but I'm trying to think who would beat her. I'm trying to think. You know what? Let me know who you think your summer signing is, because I do feel like she's definitely been up there. And obviously Taylor Hines started as well, which is my second takeaway, that I quite like how Slagers wasn't afraid to sub players that have always been starting in every team. And I think especially when you have such a busy time period, like we have 4 games to look ahead to, because we've got pretty much 2 games for each side in the next few weeks. It's a very busy time period, so it's good that she's able to sub the likes of Katie McCabe and give Taylor Hines a run out. Obviously, it was against a former club, and she also joined in the summer, so I feel like that could be another option. And it was just good to see her starting. Maybe it was something to do with the Liverpool narrative of being her former club, that she wanted to start her, but either way, it was great to see her on the pitch. And I felt like Slager's management with the substitutions was really good. I mean, when she made them, the likes of Ford coming on, Mornham going off, Blackstenius coming on, I think it was just really good, the rotation she made and when she made them. And obviously, it ended up working in the end. So I was quite impressed. The third takeaway is slightly, I don't know if it's slightly more negative, but there are still moments of, oh my God, what is going on? If that makes sense. There's still moments where, as an Arsenal fan, I'm sat there in the stand thinking, why aren't we scoring? Why aren't we finding the net when we're having so many opportunities? Why is Blackstenius offside again? There's all these little moments. Obviously, she did find the net, so, redeemed herself. But there's still those little moments of why is it not completely working? Obviously, the goal that was conceded, you could tell that Annika Borba, who is obviously the third choice keeper, she made her debut. And I think as a whole, she seemed a bit shaky at the start, but as a whole, it was a good debut to make. And obviously, we got the win, which was really good. But I felt like there were moments, not only just from the keeper, but as a whole, a little bit shaky, a little bit not as cohesive as we're used to or as we want, basically. So as much as we obviously got the win, I feel like we obviously know that there's still some negatives. If you can think of any off the top of your head, then let me know down in the comments below. But yeah, I do feel like it was a good game. It was great to be at the Emirates. And what was quite funny is we obviously left being like, oh my gosh, so lucky. We were drawing and then we managed to get a last minute winner. Walked out, and the Emirates were showing the men's game, and we were like, oh my God, it's a draw for Villa. So we started watching it, and then me and a couple of friends were like, oh, let's just go grab some food. So we left with probably about 5-10 minutes left of the game. And then we just walked out, and as we walked out, we looked at our phones, and we got a notification saying that Villa had scored, and it was 2-1 to them. And I went, what are the chances both games end up 2-1, but only one goes the way we want it? Also, the goals both come as basically either extra time or very late minute winners. So, yeah, quite a contrast. I feel like I definitely picked the right game to be at for a 2-1 performance, basically, on Saturday. I did actually predict this to be a 2-1 win. Sadly, obviously, it ended up being in the opposite way. It was Aston Villa 2, Arsenal 1. My first takeaway from this game is we have to praise Rice. I feel like I could say it week on week. It's sort of similar to the way I talk about Russo a lot. The way Rice plays, he is so crucial, but why is it all on him? It seems like the other players, maybe, yes, obviously Erdegaard has just come back from injury, so a bit of context is very key in this. We know Zubimendi has been so key for us as well, but I just do feel like a lot falls on Rice's shoulders and he needs a bit more support. And I've spoken to a few Arsenal fans, it seems to be sort of a mutual thing that we all sort of are seeing, but I mean, it's not taking it away from Rice. If anything, we're saying he's doing so well. We just need him to have support, especially with all the busy fixtures coming up. We can't rely on just him to start every game and play so well every single game. The second thing, I feel like this has gone quite negative, but it's basically, do we actually have an injury crisis? The fact that 4 out of 8 defenders aren't available, aren't fit, is that a bit of an injury crisis? I mean, we can break that down a bit and see that we only really need 4 defenders. It's so good that we've got that many options to pick from, that Arteta's created that squad and that depth, but it just feels like the more injuries we're getting, we can't have 4 fit defenders to play 2 games this week, 1 Premier League game and 1 Champions League game. We've got to have a bit more rotation available. I mean, some players obviously will come back, hopefully from injury, but it is something to be a little bit concerned about, but I don't think it's too detrimental for the team's performance because we are making up for it in other positions, and we do still have 4 defenders, so it's not like we don't have players that can't actually play in that position. I mean, I think Merino proves that even when you're not playing in your position, you can still play all right. So, I think that's a bit of a question mark whether we actually have hit an injury crisis or if this is just a narrative that a lot of teams use as an excuse, but because we're still top of the league and we're still top of the Champions League, I don't really see it as an excuse because even if we weren't, it's something that all teams have to face, so we can't really use that as a reason. My third takeaway is that we're acting like we're not top of the league. We're acting like we're not leading the way with all these narratives, everyone getting so frustrated. I don't really want to hear it because I think you've still got to back them. This is still such a good team. And the fact that we do have these injuries and the fact that players are playing out of their positions, it's all just a learning curve. We've even trialled Madueke this week in Saka's position. That's something that we hadn't really experimented with too much, apart from obviously when Madueke first joined. But I feel like that's something that we're just getting used to where different players play, and I think everyone just needs to calm a bit. Don't get me wrong, obviously if we're sort of January, February time, that's when you can properly tell who's going to be winning the title race. And I know that a lot of people, I've had people on my fan zone, which obviously check them all out because they're all really good. I like to say so myself because I love the people that I get on and get to chat to about their journeys. But a lot of people have been very confident with Arsenal that I don't want it to suddenly be a massive switch just because we lost 1 game. I think obviously, if the trend carries on, but I don't see that happening. I feel like we just need to stay a bit more optimistic. So that's what I'm going to do, basically. So I don't really want to hear it, all the negativity around that. So yeah, that's basically a look back at all the games. Let's now look ahead to the predictions because we've actually got 4 games to look at, which is insane. Okay, so as there's 4 games to look ahead to, and obviously my recent history of predictions hasn't been the best, I'm going to try keep this little part of the episode quite quick. I feel like this episode has actually flown by, so I hope you're all enjoying, and thank you if you are still listening or watching, however you access this podcast. The first game is happening tonight at 8 p.m. It is the Women's Champions League at Meadow Park. It's Arsenal versus Twente, and it's a tough one. I feel like we have to win it. I do feel like for some reason I have a feeling that Russo will get on the score sheet. I feel like that's what she does, especially a Champions League game, especially at Meadow Park. Maybe even Marona Caldente. So this prediction has gone a little bit more in depth as my normal ones, but I do think it's going to be a 2-0 win. Arsenal 10th. We're playing a team that's in 14th, a team that also drew against Chelsea. So I know it's not necessarily going to be the easiest game, but I don't think Chelsea's form has been the best recently. Anyway, so I don't really know if we can go off that narrative anymore, but I do think that we should get this win. There were promising moments against Liverpool, so I hope it carries on. So I'm going to go with a 2-0 win tonight. Tomorrow night, we also have another Champions League game. It's in the Men's Champions League. Tomorrow night, 8 p.m, Arsenal travel to Club Brugge. And you know what? There's a lot of headlines. When I was doing a little bit of research for this game, I was like, oh no, this is bad, because apparently up to 8 players could be missing in this game for Arsenal, which is a lot of players. I mean, we're arguably meant to be the best in Europe right now. We are top of the Champions League table. I think there's room for us to get a draw. And you know what? That's kind of the way I feel like this game is going. I'm going to predict a 2-2 draw because I just feel like we're not going to lose. I don't see that happening. But I do just feel like with a lot of players missing, and also we do have another game at the end of the week that we need to make sure we win. That's a game that we have to win, which I feel like is more likely to win anyways. So I'm going to have to go with a 2-2 draw. Everton versus Arsenal, we're back in the WSL on Saturday. This is an interesting game actually because Everton have just stopped Chelsea's winning streak. But going into this game, if that game didn't happen, I'd think, right, Everton are a mid-table side. We should be able to win this easily. But because of that defensive masterclass that they pulled off against Chelsea, I'm having second thoughts about it. So I do feel like it could be quite a tight game. Obviously, we are away as well, and I do feel like the Everton fan base will really be on it. So I'm going to go with a very tight 1-0 win to Arsenal, a classic 1-0 win, if you will. And then the same day, I feel like these games keep happening at the same time. The same day, but it's an 8 p.m. kickoff, which is such a weird time, I feel like, for a game. But Wolves are visiting Arsenal at the Emirates. It's obviously a Premier League fixture. Wolves are struggling right at the very bottom. Arsenal have to win it. There's no question about it. I'm going to predict it to be a 2-0 win. If anything, I think we should get more goals, but I think it does depend the players that are fit for that game, how the game goes midweek in the Champions League. There's a lot of factors, basically. So out of the 4 games, I'm predicting 3 wins and 1 draw. Let me know down in the comments if you're thinking the same. Also, let me know down in the comments any thoughts about Arsenal from last week, the upcoming week, Arsenal as a whole, men's, women's. I don't care. I want to hear it all. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify, I really appreciate you getting to this point because I know that I waffle quite a bit during these episodes. But yeah, thanks for sticking around. If you enjoy it and you haven't already followed on Spotify or subscribed on YouTube, I'd really appreciate it if you did. I'm enjoying growing this podcast and I'd love for you guys to support in any way that you can. So yeah, you don't have to, there's no pressure, but obviously it's free to do and it does benefit me a lot. So that's all I have to say. I hope you have a great week watching 4 Arsenal games or trying to watch as many of them as you can. Hopefully you're able to get to some games if you are an Arsenal fan, and hopefully they're unsuccessful hate watches if you're not an Arsenal fan as well. So, depends who's watching this podcast basically, but I feel like the majority of you are Arsenal fans, which I appreciate. But yeah, anyways, have a great week.